Hey, what's going on YouTube family? It's your man Jeremy Doodoo here. And in this video, I want to talk about how being a UX professional can affect your creativity. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I don't see a lot of YouTubers talk about this. I see on YouTube now that there are folks going to 3-month boot camps and they're getting UX jobs and they're so wide-eyed. And I want to bring you guys some perspective from my experience in the industry over the past several years. So the funny thing is that when you work in an organization as a UX designer, you don't have all this creative freedom. And I think that that's a misconception for aspiring designers, is that they think that they can just do whatever they want creatively. But when you work in an organization, the reality is that there's all these different constraints and these factors that are out of your control that can affect how you work in your creative process. And I'll just bring a couple of examples up here. I won't dig too deep into it because I don't want some haters telling me that I'm talking about UX design and discouraging folks. But the reality is that when you work for a business, let's say Facebook or whoever those big companies are, there might be somebody in leadership that impacts your creative process. They might not value design, or they don't know how designers work, but yet their opinion drives how you approach your creative process. They might say, I think that we need to look at this application and their ideas, and that's what I want to implement. And now you're proposing different solutions based on this other app that this stakeholder loves. And now that you're proposing those solutions, they're not technically feasible at all within that organization that you work at, because their design system has limited tech functionality, right? Like, that's just one example, but it's a common thing that happens. So it's just something to be aware of, that you don't have all this creative freedom where you could just say, yo, I like what's happening on the Yelp app. I like how this modal looks. Can we just implement it on our app? Like, it's going to be some trade-offs, and there are always compromises that have to be made. So that can be a frustrating thing for up-and-coming designers who are just going through those situations. It's a learning process, and you have to understand where to make compromises and where to speak up about things that you really want to get into a product. So it's just something that I want folks to be aware of, because oftentimes what I see is that designers work within a company and they're also doing their own thing on the side to kind of balance out their creative mindsets, right? You came into being a designer and you grew into that role because you want to be creative. So your mind naturally just wants to noodle on things and explore, right? But sometimes you just can't do that in a company. So just pursuing art and getting paid for your art, that's a challenge in life, right? So one way to balance it out is to do that on the side, and there are no constraints there, right? Like, the only constraint is your time if you have a full-time job. But you can put as much love and passion as you want into that creative side hustle. And it doesn't even need to be something that you make money on, but it could just be something that fulfills you, right? Some people do a podcast, some people do something that's totally outside of design, but it helps them balance the frustrations and the inner workings of working at a company versus something that gives them just intrinsic fulfillment. I have become conscious of is that sometimes when you work within all these different constraints of being at a company, it can blur into your personal life where you start putting certain limitations on yourself, because when you're working on a product, you have to think through the happy path scenarios. If somebody's buying a bike from a website and they want to purchase that bike, you also have to think about, what if the Wi-Fi goes down? What if that person's credit card fails because they don't have enough money, right? You're thinking about all the what if scenarios. But when you're doing your own thing on the side, I think that what I've become conscious of is that I started to question every single little step that I'm doing. Like, what if I start an LLC and I don't know what I'm doing? Where do I start? Where, like, all these different things, I started questioning myself because the kind of mindset that I've had in my everyday job, right? And I think it's really similar to what actors go through. One of my friends is an actor, and he mentioned that he will never take on a negative role in his life ever again, where he has to play a character who has negative emotions, because he started to sense that when he would go home after a full day's work, he started to carry those heavy emotions that he was portraying in the character that he was playing. So it just started to affect his personal life, and I think that is something that a lot of creative professionals struggle with, where your personal and your professional life kind of blend together. But I think that it's important to delineate the two, because you still have to have a sense of who you are, right? So that's just some thoughts and some tangents that I wanted to touch on in terms of creativity, because you get into it thinking that you can be really creative, but then you can become jaded over time when you start to understand that, like when you work at a company, it's not, you don't have all this freedom that you thought that you would early on in your career, but it's just a learning process, right? And it's just the nature of working as a UX designer. So yeah, guys, if this video helped you in any shape or form, or just change your mind a little bit, you already know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.